You're guilty. Guilty, I tell you. They'll send you up the river for this. They'll put you in the big house. They'll give you the chair. They'll stop your arms. They'll stop your legs. The executioner will pull the switch, and you'll burn, I tell you. You'll burn!
What's up, everyone, and welcome. In this episode, we're going to talk about the Colonial Pipeline Ransomware attack. We're going to learn how these types of attacks work and how we can protect ourselves and our clients from these types of attacks. This is the agenda for our talk today. I'm first going to go through a definition of what ransomware is, just to make sure we're all thinking about it on the same plane. In order to build a good defense, we must intimately know our enemy. Sounds a little bit like a statement out of Sun Tzu's Art of War, or maybe I heard it from, I don't know, some speech from some old historical general, or maybe I just made it up. I don't know, but it kind of sounds Art of War-y to me. So let's take a quick trip down memory lane after that. How did we get to where we are right now with ransomware? We want to look at the anatomy of ransomware. What is involved? How does it work? If we know the pieces and how they work, we can evaluate where we are vulnerable. Makes sense. We want to learn from the fallen who has been attacked. Let's review some notable companies affected, what their response was. Did they pay? Did they not pay? And see if we can determine what their weakness was and evaluate its place within our own organization. Finally, what can I do? Steps to improve. Let's look at common areas that we can immediately address to reduce our vulnerabilities. What is ransomware? I'm going to use the Wikipedia definition. Again, I rely on Wikipedia for the best and most thorough definitions in my experience. So, what do they say? They say ransomware is a type of malware from cryptovirology that threatens to publish the victim's data or perpetually block access to it unless a ransom is paid. While some simple ransomware may lock the system so that it's not difficult for a knowledgeable person to reverse, more advanced malware uses a technique called cryptoviral extortion. It encrypts the victim's files, making them inaccessible, and demands a ransom payment to decrypt them. In a properly implemented cryptoviral extortion attack, the way that's stated is like there's improper ways of doing it and proper ways of doing it. But in a properly implemented cryptoviral, it's kind of British. In a properly implemented cryptoviral extortion attack, recovering the files without the decryption key is an intractable problem, and difficult to trace digital currencies such as PaySafeCard or Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies are used for the ransoms, making tracing and prosecuting the perpetrators difficult. Ransomware attacks are typically carried out using a Trojan disguised as a legitimate file that the user is tricked into downloading or opening when it arrives as an email attachment. However, one high-profile example, the Wannacry worm, it traveled automatically between computers without user interaction. So you didn't need to open up a file; it was able to scan the network and multiply itself. So here we go, memory lane. How did we get here? I have no idea. Ransomware has been terrifying individuals and, most importantly, companies for the last 30 years. You didn't think that, did you? Worse yet, over time, there have become more advanced and sophisticated threats. New tactics and technologies are used either to deceive detection solutions, to encrypt different types of files, or to convince the user to pay the ransom amount. Here is our timeline. We're going to go way back to 1989, before a lot of the viewers are probably going to have been born. So in 1989, there was something called the AIDS Trojan or the PC Cyborg. The AIDS Trojan, also known as PC Cyborg, is the first registered ransomware in history. That's why its creator, Joseph Popp, a Harvard-trained biologist, can be considered the father of ransomware. So now you know the name. Now go ahead and Google and you can find the face. So the AIDS Trojan was distributed using infected floppy disks. It feels kind of weird to say the word AIDS like as a Trojan, but whatever. It was named that way because they were sent to participants at the World Health Organization's International AIDS Conference. Okay, it was in Stockholm, Sweden, in 1989. So after hiding file directories and blocking file names, this type of ransomware asked the victim to send $189 to a mailbox in Panama. Only then could the data be recovered. But since it had weak encryption, there were no real major problems. So we jump ahead 14 years to 2013. You have Cryptolocker. The Cryptolocker ransomware was a milestone for its time. When it was launched in 2013, Cryptolocker used a large, non-standard encrypted key, which has challenged cybersecurity experts. was not easy. This type of ransomware is believed to have caused losses of more than $3 million, infected more than 200,000 Windows-based computers. Cryptolocker was distributed mainly via email using malicious files. Now, $3 million doesn't sound like a lot in the world of we're spending trillions on, the U.S. economy. But if you're the one who's infected, $3 million is a lot of money. So let's not overlook that. So you're now at 2013. Less than 2 years later, 2015, or roughly 2 years later, 2015. You can see that the time between the release of these, even though there are a bunch more, these are more of the notable ones, has been decreasing. So in 2015, we went from 2013, then in 2015 we have TeslaCrypt. Like other types of ransomware, TeslaCrypt has several versions. But the attacks of this type of ransomware became famous because in the beginning it infected game files, blocking maps and user profiles of games like Call of Duty, Minecraft, Warcraft. The evolved versions of TeslaCrypt were able to then encrypt other file types, PDFs, PowerPoint, Word, Excel documents, etc. In any case, the victim was forced to pay at least $250 to release the files. There are cases, as you can see here in this blue screen, of companies being required to pay $550 per machine. So if you're a company with 50, 100, 5,000 employees, $500 per machine is a lot. So only 1 year later, you have Petya, 2016. Petya is a ransomware that started to be propagated in 2016 via emails with malicious attachments, a recurring theme. Most of these are transmitted via either attachments or a link to an infected file that will install ransomware within the email. Since its launch, it's estimated that different variations of Petya have caused more than $10 billion with a B dollars in financial losses. Petya acts by infecting the boot record of machines that use the Windows system. Windows, recurring theme. That is, it blocks the entire operating system. To unlock, you need to pay a ransom of around $300 per user. $300 for one user, not a lot. Again, 50, 100, 500, 5,000, 10,000 employees, it starts to hurt. This type of ransomware affected different organizations all around the world, such as banks and companies in the areas of transportation, oil, food, and health. The National Bank of Ukraine. You might be saying, yeah, so what? But it's a bank, does business. You have Merck. You've definitely heard of Merck. Rosneft, oil company. I haven't heard of them, but they were affected. 2017, again, only 1 year. Wannacry. This was the one that was mentioned earlier on. One of the most devastating ransomware attacks in history in terms of loss volume. The estimated value at the time was $4 billion with a B in losses. The amount required to release each machine was around $300. Wannacry spread via email scams or phishing. Worldwide, more than 200,000 people and companies were affected. FedEx, Telefonica, Nissan, Renault. Wannacry exploits a vulnerability in Windows. Even today, there are phishing emails claiming that you were infected by Wannacry, demanding ransom payment. But most of them are just plain emails with no attachment, so just pay attention. 1 year later, 2018, you have SamSam. You may not have heard of SamSam, but SamSam ransomware was identified a few years ago. It was in 2015. It became famous in 2018, or it gained more prominence in 2018 after infecting the city of Atlanta, the Colorado Department of Transportation, and the port of San Diego, abruptly stopping services. In the same year, 2 Iranian hackers were accused of using SamSam against more than 200 organizations and companies in the US and Canada, including hospitals, municipalities, public institutions. Again, this is a recurring theme. Who are they attacking in general? A loss of $30 million is estimated as a result of the attacks. Just the city of Atlanta alone paid $2 million. The Indiana hospital, Hancock Health, paid $55,000. To spread this type of ransomware often exploits vulnerabilities in remote desktop or the file transfer protocol, FTP. Jump to 2019 and 2020, different versions of Ryok. Like most infections caused by ransomware, Ryok is spread mainly via malicious emails or phishing emails containing dangerous links and attachments. So think all those fake PayPal payment requests or payment receipts that you get, or from weird banks, all of those fake emails are potentially trying to get you to click on a link or open up an invoice. file that will infect your computer. The ransom amount to be paid to release an entire system can exceed $300,000, making Ryok one of the most expensive ransomware in history, well above the average. According to the FBI, Ryok's attacks have already caused more than $60 million in damage worldwide since this type of ransomware gained prominence in 2018 after stopping the operations of major newspapers in the United States. More than 100 companies suffered attacks. In 2020, for example, MCOR Group, it's an engineering and industrial construction company, personally never heard of it, and Epic Global, legal services company, suffered incidents involving Ryok. Also haven't heard of them, but the fact that it's prominent and prevalent has me worried. So now we're on to Colonial Pipeline. And how does all this sort of merge with this company? On Friday, May 7th, Colonial Pipeline said that a cyber attack forced the company to proactively close down operations and freeze IT systems after becoming the victim of said cyber attack. It later comes out within the different articles that you would read that it was a ransomware outbreak linked to the Darkside group that struck the Colonial Pipelines networks. The Darkside group has since subsequently apparently come out and said and taken credit for it. Said that it was either them or one of their affiliates is how it was written, and they then publicly stated that in general they do not attack things to make sort of some type of social statement or affect economies. It's really trying to go after companies, have those companies improve their security as well as pay sort of a ransom. You could even call it a finder's fee for finding the hole, but it's ransom. So the initial attack vector isn't known. It's still under investigation. The FBI is involved, but it may have been an old unpatched vulnerability in a system, most likely a Windows system, a phishing email that successfully fooled an employee, the use of access credentials purchased or obtained elsewhere that were leaked previously. Now that's kind of weird because it's saying, the way that part is to me is written, it seems to be indicating that they were infiltrated before and they never fixed it. Let's read it again. The use of access credentials purchased or obtained elsewhere that were leaked previously. Okay, so if you're saying something might have been leaked, or if your security plan isn't set in place that you regularly change credentials, then I would say you have a problem. So anyway, the anatomy of ransomware. How does it work? It's just generally 5 steps. Some people show you 4, but it's in essence 5 steps. You get an email with either a link to a malicious website or a malicious file, an invoice, or whatever. You click on it, it installs a piece of ransomware, of malware. So after the victim's computer is infected, the crypto ransomware installs itself and sets keys in the Windows registry to start automatically every time you boot your computer. Turns it into a service. So every time you boot your computer, it starts. It contacts headquarters. Before the crypto ransomware can attack you, it contacts a server operated by the criminal gang that owns it. So once it makes that contact, it gives some kind of special handshake, and then the server generates 2 cryptographic keys. One key is kept on your computer, and then the second key is kept on the server of the hackers. Once that is done, the software gets busy encrypting all kinds of files. With the cryptographic keys established, the ransomware on your computer starts encrypting every file it finds, using dozens of common extensions, from Microsoft Office documents to JPEG images and more. The last step is the extortion step. Once it's encrypted, you are shown a screen. And the ransomware displays a screen giving you a time limit to pay up before the criminals destroy the key to decrypt your files. The typical price is $300 to $500. It must be paid in untraceable Bitcoin or other electronic payment methods. So let's go into some known cases. I'm going to talk about only one case that I know of, or prominent case or notable case that I know of where they didn't pay, and there's a reason, very specific reason for that, and then cases that did pay. So we're going to start with Spectra Logic. This is a company that did not pay. Now pay attention because you're going to see why they didn't pay. So it started out as a normal Thursday for Tony Mendoza, Senior IT Director at Spectra Logic, a data storage company based in Boulder, Colorado. So they're a data storage company. They should have policies in place to be able to mitigate this, security policies. They should have backups. They should really be the kings here, the guys who know everything. And then the ransomware attack began. We got some notifications of some system failings, and it quickly turned into a lot of unrelated systems failing, which is really abnormal, says Mendoza. He realized that the company was under attack and that its files were being encrypted. When it hit, we ran to our server room and data center and started pulling plugs out so it couldn't propagate itself, which brought our entire infrastructure down, he says. In total, 3/4 of the production environment was compromised with ransomware. The hackers left a ransom note demanding a payment of $3.6 million in Bitcoin in exchange for the decryption key. So, they got an attack, however it happened, right? Could be phishing email, or they got in, they started encrypting everything. This guy, he was awake, I guess, so it didn't happen overnight when everybody's asleep or whatnot. He started pulling out all of the plugs, and even with all of that, within the time it took him to realize what was happening and pull out all the plugs in their data center and their office, it still was able to encrypt 3/4 of their production environment. Right? It was compromised. So now, Spectra Logic had cyber insurance. Major point here. A lot of these companies have insurance to cover the ransom payment. The cyber insurance could potentially have covered the cost of paying the ransom. That might have been the simpler short-term decision for restoring the network, but it was quickly decided that with the backups still available, they had backups, but I mentioned before, Spectra Logic wouldn't give in to the ransom demand. No, we're not going to pay. Yeah, because you have the backups. What do you lose? 1 day, 2 days, a couple hours worth of data, or even a couple of weeks, but you still have enough to recuperate your systems. But here's where the human toll, and you can say the financial toll, still took place. It took days of working around the clock, but eventually the IT department, their entire IT department, worked essentially 24 hours a day for a week, sleeping on couches in the office, working in shifts, with the aid of other cybersecurity specialists, and the FBI was involved. It was able to restore some functionality to the network a week after the ransomware attack without paying out to the attackers. So they invested still a ton of money and resources and human power and had access to cybersecurity specialists and the FBI in order to get there and not pay the ransom. So they didn't pay the ransom in terms of financial, or they didn't necessarily pay $3.6 million in terms of financial, but in terms of blood, sweat, tears, they probably paid that 3 times over. So, if you or I ever saw this screen, we would probably start sweating immediately. Forget about probably. I guarantee you start sweating. Your network has been penetrated. All files on each host of the network have been encrypted with a strong algorithm. Backups were either encrypted or deleted, or backup disks were formatted. Shadow copies also removed. So F8 or any other methods may damage encrypted data but not recover. We exclusively have decryption software for your situation. No decryption software is available in the public. Do not reset or shut down. Files may be damaged. Do not rename or remove the encrypted and README files. Do not delete README files. Do not use any recovery software with restoring files overriding encrypted. This may lead to the impossibility of recovery of the certain files. That is a ransom note. Who got it? City of Florence. Spelled Florence wrong. Alabama. On June 5th, ransomware attackers breached the IT networks of City of Florence, Alabama. After the intruders unleashed the attack, they encrypted the city systems and requested Bitcoin worth almost $300,000. City officials decided to pay the ransom fee, seeking to keep their residents' personal details off the internet. On May 26, acting in response to the information received by Hold Security, Krebs On Security, contacted the Florence mayor's office to inform that a ransomware group had taken control of a Windows 10 system in their IT environment. Okay, so they were on top of things. They saw that one system was taken over. The computer and the Windows network account that was flagged as compromised were isolated by an administrator. However, a few days later, they found Florence Mayor Steve Holt announced that the city's email system was shut down by a cyber attack. At the time, there was no evidence of ransomware, according to Holt. However, Holt later admitted in an interview with Krebs on Security that the city's systems had been infected with double paymer, a ransomware type used by a cyber-criminal group with a reputation for negotiating some of the largest extortion payments, with attacks involving hundreds of popular ransomware strains. So this is the mayor's statement. Okay, we decided to pay. Yep. What are you going to do? Communications and Power Industries, CPI, a major electronics manufacturer for defense and communications, military devices and equipment, such as radar, missile seekers, or electronic warfare technology, also became a victim of a high-profile ransomware attack this year. The incident took place in mid-January, and shortly after, the defense contractor paid a ransom of about $500,000. A user with the highest level of privileges, a domain admin, accessed a malicious link as they logged in, which contained the ransomware. Since thousands of endpoints on the network were on the same unsegmented domain, the encrypting malware rapidly extended to all CPI offices, as well as to its on-site backups. A few machines holding sensitive military data were restored using the decryption key, which was obtained after the organization paid the ransom. It was said that one system had files linked to Aegis, a naval arms system developed by Lockheed Martin. That's serious. Delaware County, Delaware County, Pennsylvania. In November, Delaware County, Pennsylvania paid a $500,000 ransom after their systems were infected by double-paymer ransomware. The Bureau of Elections and the county's emergency service department were not impacted because they were on a different network. According to local media, the ransomware operators managed to access networks that contained police reports, payroll, purchasing, and other sensitive information. The attackers demanded a $500,000 ransom in exchange for the decryption. The payment was covered by cyber insurance. University of Utah. The University of Utah announced on July 19, 2020, that they became the target of ransomware. A $457,000 ransom was paid to stop criminals from disclosing data captured during the attack. If in the College of Social and Behavioral Sciences branch, the malware encrypted their servers as part of the operation before locking up the devices, and malicious actors also stole the university's data. University of California, San Francisco, UCSF. The University of California, San Francisco paid a ransom demand of $1.4 million to recover files encrypted by ransomware. The institution was attacked on June 1st when ransomware was discovered in the systems of the UCSF School of Medicine. The IT staff attempted to isolate the infection, which prevented the malware from extending to the core UCSF network and producing additional damage. So they were able to isolate it only to that one department. The school said the attack did not affect their patient care delivery operations, overall campus network, or COVID-19 work. However, the UCSF servers used by the School of Medicine were encrypted. The NetWalker ransom gang was believed to be responsible for the attack. The BBC closely followed the dark web negotiation made between NetWalker and the UCSF. The malicious hackers first asked for a ransom of $3 million, which was disputed by the UCSF with a $780,000 proposal. The university's offer was declined, and negotiations eventually led to an agreed figure of $1.140895 paid in Bitcoin. If I saw this screen again, I would be sweating bullets. This is Garmin. Garmin experienced a worldwide outage on July 23, 2020, where their clients could not access their services. Bleeping Computer was the first one to announce the incident after Garmin's employees exchanged images of encrypted workstations. The cyber assault was carried out by the operators of the TeslaCrypt ransomware. Employees later revealed that the ransom demand was $10 million. Garmin suddenly announced that they were beginning to restore services after a 4-day shutdown. After 4 days, which led the public to believe that they had paid a ransom to obtain the decryptor. However, the company declined the comment. Bleeping Computer obtained access to an executable developed by the Garmin IT department used to decrypt a workstation and install a range of security tools on the device. Wasted Locker is a ransomware strain with no known vulnerabilities in its encryption algorithm. The absence of flaws only suggests that it would not have been possible to create a decryptor for free, especially not in 4 days. So here's a statement from Lawrence Abrams. To obtain a working decryption key, Garmin must have paid the ransom to the attackers. It is not known how much was paid, but as previously stated, an employee had told Bleeping Computer that the original ransom demand was $10 million. Here's some more examples. Just really briefly, the water supply in Florida. It was all over the news. Somebody managed to hack in there and increase the amount of sodium hydroxide to a potentially dangerous level. It was caught, but somebody was still able to access it. A popular Canadian plane manufacturer, Bombardier, suffered a data breach in February 2021. The breach resulted in the compromise of the confidential data of suppliers, customers, and around 130 employees located in Costa Rica. If you look at April this year, just the week of April 30th, you had Metropolitan Police Department, Mercy Rail UK rail operator, Whistler Resort Municipality in Brazil's court systems in Rio Grande do Sul. The week of April 9th, Steel Flash, Broward County Public Schools, APA Plus Technologies, Pierre Fabre, Harris Federation. And if you look at March, you're talking about 34 announcements. Schools, Salt Lake City. MIDC's IT infra faces ransomware attack in Mumbai. Staff unable to access patient files after Eastern Health cyber attack in Victoria, Australia. Again in Australia. City of Stoughton IT in Massachusetts. CNA in Chicago. University of Miami Health System, Miami, Florida, London, England, Boulder, Colorado. You're looking at here a $50 million ransom for Acer, San Jose. There's Denver, Buffalo, New York, Johannesburg, Chicago. Molson Coors suffered suspected ransomware attack. The Public Payments Agency in Spain, the Spanish government. Again, Molson Coors in Melbourne, Victoria, US. You have tons of attacks happening. So how do you stay safe? First thing you want to do is have a plan. Without a plan of what's going to happen, just think about the Spectra Logic. The guy noticed there was an attack. First thing he did, started unplugging machines. That could be your plan. You want to restrict write permissions on file servers. You saw that the systems admin, one of the companies, he had needed the rights, but the amount of rights that he had, you think you would want to re-evaluate, what these people are doing, what they have access to, and how they need to potentially elevate those privileges with additional checks and balances to perform said tasks. You want to use advanced endpoint protection that can identify new malware variants and detect malicious traffic. That's a no-brainer. Anti-malware, anti-virus software on your systems. You want to use email and web protection. False line just with the antivirus. You want to block access to malicious websites and scan all downloads. Blocking access to malicious websites can be done at your firewall, can be done at your router. It can be done on systems. Scanning all downloads could be done locally, depending on where the download actually happens. If it's on a network, or if it's locally, you want to educate your users to contact IT if they encounter suspicious pop-ups. But even more so, you want to educate your users how to interact with emails that they receive. Not just blindly open up something that says it's an invoice if it's sent to them, and they may not even be responsible for invoices. How to check their bank. Just type in your bank's domain name. Don't just blindly click on links within an email. How to verify if an email is legitimate. If you get an email from, let's say, JP Morgan Chase, and you look at the from, and the from is some Gmail account, then that's not a legitimate email. So educate your users. Make time for regular offline backups and test the backups to ensure that they can be restored from reliably. And not enough companies make backups. I make backups of backups. Disconnect from the networks immediately. Again, that's what Spectra Logic did. They started unplugging machines left and right. Try to mitigate the spread. Update systems regularly. This is a key point, especially for today. You want to either, I don't want to say automate the process of installing updates, because certain pieces of software depend on certain versions, and I know that many large corporations might still have applications that were developed for Internet Explorer 11, and it can't be upgraded to the new IE because it just won't work anymore. The cost of redeveloping those applications is extremely high, but you have to look at what your security process is, either through the education of users or the blocking, the scanning of downloads, and the blocking of malicious websites. that has to be part of your plan and part of your implementation. And lastly, we have get insurance if you don't already have it. You saw that in a lot of these cases, the insurance covered the fees. You have the case of Spectra Logic, who did not pay the ransom, and their insurance would have covered the fees. But why did they pay? Because they had the backups. So, if you look at make time for regular offline backups, that is a key to being able to recoup from these types of situations, and try to have those backups on a different network or different environment, so that if your system is infected, then those backups do not get encrypted and infected and basically completely negate your ability to recoup. So there you have it. We come full circle. We looked at the Colonial. We started off saying, what happened to Colonial, which is they got attacked by a ransomware. What is ransomware? How does it work? What companies have been affected recently? How do people react? Pay, not pay? And what can we do to secure our systems and mitigate this from happening to us? If you enjoyed the video, I ask you to please give a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel. I'm going to be putting out more videos related to these types of hacks and what's happened, and explain it to you based on everything that I learn about them, how you can mitigate it, how you can react, how you could basically see if you're even affected, as well as videos on all types of DevOps applications, real world use cases for DevOps, DevSecOps, infrastructure security, infrastructure as code, etc. So with that, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I do hope that you'll continue to join me on this journey, and I look forward to seeing you on another video.
Don't forget to ride!